who ran an advertising company came and made me this offer to model. Now, it was considered absolutely, uh, it was unthinkable for my family to accept that decision, that I even wanted to give it a try. And my father's outright refusal, he said, nonsense. But I'll skip that part. I did start as a model, and at 17, I was on the cover of God knows, maybe 200, 300 magazines, including French Vogue at the time when, it was considered, and it was one of the world's greatest photographers who photographed me, came to India to photograph me in very beautiful settings. I did almost every top commercial campaign there was. The biggest textile companies. It was textile boom, remember, at that time, and everyone was celebrating textiles, and the mills were peaking in that. So there were many opportunities. We were also, India was very proudly launching its old beauty products. We were launching Godrej soap and Lakme and all of that. It was a heady time and a great time to be modeling. It gave me a lot of confidence. I got the chance to travel. But the body shaming that you were talking about, each one of us at that time, we were distinct and we were different. There was Zinat Aman, we modeled a lot together. We did lots of campaigns together. Believe it or not, there was Asha Putli. We did a lot of campaigns together. I mean, she's a great singer. But
She has lovely stories about Asha Putli, but we won't go there.
we won't go there. But yeah, and with all the there was Persis Kambata, who it was the tail end of her modeling career before she went off to work in Star Trek, which made her a global star. There were many amazing people I modeled with, and but each one of us was different, and we were far from perfect. We did not have the idyllic model body, which is we all had Indian bodies and Indian body types, the pear-shaped body, and no one was size zero. Size zero was something that was invented with Kareena Kapoor being called size zero when she lost weight for a specific film. But we were given a lot of respect for our individuality. When we walked the ramp, we didn't look like we came out of a mold. People came to see a different personality, and I was the sari model. So they came to see me wearing saris. They came to see Zinat wearing Western clothes. So it was a period of also experimentation in the fashion world. And we got a very princely sum of 150 rupees per show.
So there was not no bulimic vomiting and
None of it. No one was dysfunctional at all. Salome Roy Kapoor, if some of you may know her as the mother of Aditya Roy Kapoor, who's quite the heartthrob in Bollywood, and his brothers. She used to be the dancing model. She used to open the shows because she was a trained dancer. They used to run. Sam Aaron was her dad, and she still does ballroom dancing. She conducts them in various clubs because she loves dancing. So she would open and close the shows with a performance. So we traveled so much together. She and I were always roomies because we had a lot in common. We were the ones who didn't want to party after the shows, and we were the two who would oil our hair and like good little girls go to bed. But there were also women who broke the mold in a spectacular way, but not considered beautiful in India at all. In fact, made to feel ugly. Anjali Mendes, Phyllis, all 6 feet of her. And she figured very early in life, when she started modeling in India, that each time she came on, people were laughing because she was not beautiful by Indian standards. She was way too tall, and she was fabulous. I mean, she's also a very close friend. Who passed away, by the way. She decided to pack her bags. The editor of Times of India at the time, Dilip Padgaonkar, who was based as a Paris correspondent in Paris for Times of India, they were friends, and she got a sum of money, which both of us had done a great campaign for a Maharaja. We didn't know, we were such idiots and innocents, to model the jewelry he was going to smuggle out of India on his little private aircraft across the Gulf of Kutch. And he wanted 2 models who would willingly model this jewelry for him for some small pittance of an amount. And then we saw it in much later in auction. catalogs, and I said, "Oh my God, this is the model. This is what we had modeled for this man." He made millions out of that. That money gave Phyllis the money to buy herself a one-way ticket, Air India ticket to Paris. She said, "I'm never coming back. Do or die. I'm going to give Paris a shot." She became one of the most successful models in Paris and became Pierre Cardin's muse for many years. And she broke that mold. She did. But each time she came back to India, it was back to people criticizing her for the color of her skin, her height, everything. But she would then laugh about it because she had already succeeded and she had gone where no other Indian model had gone before. So these are success stories. How can we ever forget the pioneers who paved the way for all the young models who came after that? Sheetal Mallar and Ujjwala Raut and all the, now of course we have the Bangalore girl who's a muse for Chanel. Fantastic. I mean, who would have imagined that back then?
So let's just talk a little about the struggle to reclaim the self that most women have in the face of this kind of abuse, I would call it, where your skin is held up to your body, your weight, your hair, everything. How does one reclaim the self?
It takes a lot of work, honestly, because no matter what society may say, no matter what social media will tell you, and it's all about validation, 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 it still is that. So how do you earn that validation in your own eyes? It's something that's very individual, that each woman has to recognize the importance of it in her own life, and to a large extent get a skin that's pretty tough, a hide rather, and not let those arrows get to her. But I often feel I've had from every sense of the word, I've been insulated from a lot of that myself. But I see it, and I feel it every time.
I think the trick is to develop a hide, but to allow for vulnerability as well. It's a kind of push-pull because you don't want to be emotionally bulletproof.
It's so difficult. I know of some of the most beautiful women in Bollywood who cry themselves to sleep every night because they're not getting that validation which they crave. They're still being compared to someone else. They're still being told, "Oh, maybe if you got your cheekbones restructured, we'll give you the main role in the next film." And they've struggled hard and got to where they have. They should be feeling on top of their game, but they don't, because the early scars have not left them. They haven't worked enough on themselves, or their vulnerabilities still hold them down from celebrating themselves and celebrating or even enjoying their own success. It's such a pity. So it's after a certain age, and the world of showbiz is particularly cruel. After the age of 40, the roles are limited, whether it's in Bollywood or in Hollywood, unless you turn producer and make your own movies, like Priyanka Chopra, who's always been 10 steps ahead of the curve and does it so spectacularly well. It's always going to be a struggle for any woman, because the judgments are so strong and often so cruel.
I think not a bottle, glass. I think we've given the audience with between your speech, your keynote address, and this, we've given the audience enough, and we should have some time for questions, especially since there are young women and young men present. If anyone would like to ask a question, I'm sure Prakash will bring the mic to you. Please put up your hand. Pratap over there, put up your hands and we'll... Arundhati, I'm sure, would like to ask a question. Thank you. Arundhati?
You definitely want to ask a question. We've decided. Or Amitabh, or Andy.
I thought this was for young women.
As your heart, Arundhati, is as young as a bud in blossom.
Actually, Shobha, this is really the question, and I think both of you touched on it already, but I'd love you to expand on it. How does one retain vulnerability, the ability to be surprised, the ability to stay sensitive, empathic, all of that, when one also has to develop this particular kind of bulletproof hide in order to survive?
Um, we all are capable of schizophrenic existence. There is a public persona, and then there is you, naked with yourself. And as long as you know, and those are clear cut, the hide is for public criticism and what comes with it. I'm trolled mercilessly, non-stop all the time. I have God knows how many court cases that have been filed against me. Will I let that defeat me? No. Because when I come home, I have to ask myself, and it's not that I don't feel that at that moment vulnerable. I cry and I feel, come on. I mean, what did I say that was so terrible that is leading to such consequences, not just for myself, but for my family, my husband, my children? I do feel it. If I stopped feeling it, I would feel worried. But if I stop myself from still going ahead and speaking my own truth, I'd feel even less about myself. So it is a daily kind of a balance that you try your best to maintain without losing it. But I would hate to become that emotionally the bulletproof person ever. I think to keep the schoolgirl, at least the schoolgirl in me is so almost visibly alive, it embarrasses my children because I get excited, and my older friends, or my friends rather, my contemporaries, often ask me, they say, Shobha, how can you be excited about such stupid things? I mean, it's really ridiculous. Everything seems to excite you. The smallest of things, and you're so excited by it. Color or something you just tasted, something you eaten. I said, yes, but I'm not faking it. I'm feeling it. They said, oh my God. So thank you so much. Oh my God, but haven't you ever outgrown that? No, I have not outgrown it. I don't wish to outgrow it. I don't ever wish to let go of my curiosity or the child within me. And I think it's very important for all of us to keep that alive consciously so.
I think Preeti is waving her hand for a question. So can you just get the mic across to her, please?
Sure.
Trapped.
Since I was not really waving my hand, but yes, I mean, Shobha, I've sort of really admired you for a number of reasons. One is also this enthusiasm. I mean, you now called it curiosity and being like a schoolgirl, but it's also this, extreme enthusiasm for things, for life, for writing, for being at these many festivals that you get invited to. So that to me is something that I really admire. I also admire your open, outspokenness, especially in your columns, which I do read. And so, yeah, those are some of the things
I
that
think she's asking what powers that.
powers that also, but also that how do you, how is it like over the years that you have continued to do that? And then this great contradiction that you talked about also about being on social media, but also being able to maintain a profile which is, either you are like me who hides away, you want to put or anything out there, but if you do, then there's this contradiction in what you're saying and what comes across to others and how they troll.
But if anyone who's on social media, I can understand those who opt out of it and who choose to, in a way, live under a rock. It's an informed decision. You know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. For me, I've been on social media for the longest time. It's something I'm used to. I'm used to also the public gaze. It doesn't bother me because I've been used to it since a very, very young age. And it's a part of my life. The trolling goes with it. Would I ever bother to engage with anonymous trollers and respond and get into tutu meme, to translate that, to get into a confrontational argument with any of them, or to defend my views to people who are faceless and nameless? I would never waste one moment of my energy doing any of that. But when things get serious and seriously hot and uncomfortable, then it's time to take a stand. I've never shied away from taking a stand. And it does not in any way intimidate me. The powerful do not intimidate me. And if I feel what I've said is in the interests of citizens or in it's all in the public domain and I can defend my point of view, then you can be the most powerful person in India or the world, and I will hold my own, and I will make sure in a democracy the judiciary is strong enough to protect my rights as a citizen. So I am not afraid.
Okay, just a question. You were talking about how the children often tell you, to get that post down, which one of the children, do they ever ring you up and say, why are you doing this, taking Panga again? Why are you?
All the time. All the time. I'll give you a funny incident and then maybe I think we've overextended our time. You tell me, someone has to
I
say.
think there's one last question. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll just finish what he just asked me about the children saying a very funny story. Well, not funny, yes. To me, it was very funny. I was in our home in Pune at the time. We no longer have that home anymore, but I did at that point. And the local top cops, being readers, wanted to pay what they call a courtesy call. So I was very pleased to have them come home. So they came home with their jeeps and their sirens and everything else. And they were in the uniform. So, and they all wanted to take pictures and I wanted to take pictures. And I took those pictures with about 6 cops, quite senior, next to me. And I sent it to my children. And the first response, my God, are you getting arrested again? I mean, what kind of respect is that? I mean, no, I'm not. But yes, I mean, so I do have to endure a lot of that, but I think they're kind of used to me. So,
Okay, this is a short question. I think you spoke with a lot of empathy and sensitivity with regards to accepting body types, all type body types. But I want to ask you a question. When we all comfortable in our body types, purely from the perspective of health. When people are either getting too thin or too fat, what do you have to say about that from a very kind of health perspective?
Jerry, you've written a lot about.
I think
Health,
fundamentally, your health is your responsibility. And we are I remember Arundhati once saying to me, we are far too concerned about people's weight. The first thing people will do is say to you, oh, you've got fat or you've got thin. That person is living in the body. They know what that body is doing to them and what they are doing to the body. If you are in some ways responsible for the person, if it is a 12-year-old child who is bulimic now, then you've got to intervene in some way, but without shaming the child, but trying to see what is causing it and how this can be resolved. And you have to seek help, the proper help, which is psychological and physiological, and try and deal with it. It's terrible if you have to deal with it. It is not an easy thing at all. My entire sympathies are with that. But it is not just, I don't think bulimia and all the other things that we have, overeating, etc., are not just driven by the outside, they are driven by the inside as well. So cleansing has to happen. I mean, we can just blame the world, but we are all subject to all of that. And yet some people are much more desperately vulnerable, and that vulnerability is both within them and outside them. And some ways we do have to just work with the possibility and not blame them as well. I'm saying this inadequately because I have no experience with it, but this is what I can manage.
No, I would say health concerns are the primary concerns and responsibility of all of us who want to lead a meaningful life, which is within our own
Especially
control.
as parents.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I'm the prime example of this. Touch wood is my husband, acutely aware of all that goes with maintaining your health and all the parameters, having your regular checkups and so on, which I'm hopeless at. I've never done that. But he scrupulously maintains that. The children see him doing that. And I'm sure a lot of it has now, sort of trickled down to them and made them aware of health as the primary concern, not just vanity.
Thank you all very much for that wonderful conversation. Thank you,
Thank you,
Shobha. As
thank you,
always,
Jerry.
a pleasure
Thank
talking
you.
to you.
Thank you very, very much.